Hello and welcome to this conversation. I have Joel, the fantastic leadership coach, with me today. And what we're talking about is work-life balance. As a business leader, whether you're running a unique business or not, you'll find yourself many times struggling to balance what you do at work and essentially other aspects of your life, your family, your relationships, and everything like that. So what Joel is going to help us to figure out is, like, once you choose to become an entrepreneur, does that necessarily mean that you are doomed, that your social circles are doomed? Does that mean that you're now tied to your business and you don't have time for your family? And how are you going to navigate work-life balance as an entrepreneur to ensure that you have a fulfilling and enriching life that does not lead you to burnout? So karibu sana Joel. Yeah, it's nice to see you again, but I'm sure there are some people who don't know you, so perhaps you can just say something about yourself.
Thank you, Dennis. My name is Joel Manyeki. I am a leadership coach, and I have an experience in the corporate world for at least 20 years. So I am here today just to share how we can have a rhythm in our life in terms of either becoming very present with the people that we really care for or matter, or being productive. So the balance between being present and being productive, and that comes to what Dennis has alluded, sometimes the work-life balance. So it's just a matter of, are you present or are you more productive? Thank you.
Okay, so perhaps you can let us know what is the difference between being present and being productive. What do those terms actually mean?
All right. I think some of us have heard the whole thing about work-life balance, but as far as work-life balance is concerned, when I talk about being present, is like when there are relationships that you have, are you present with them? And what I mean about present is not that just having the physical presence itself, but are you engaging with them? Again, the other thing is about being productive. Most of us, when we are on our work or as entrepreneurs, we really focus on results. So at that moment, we are so much focused on being productive rather than being present. So we will look and see how that balance comes up. Are you present? And what do you mean when you're present? And when are you required to be productive? Yeah. So, and you will realize when it comes to work leans so much about productivity. But when it comes to the relationship, your family, work life, generally what we consider life is just about being present. Yeah.
Okay, maybe. So what you're saying is that the obsession that we have today with results could actually be harming more than it is helping?
Definitely. You will notice one of the things, and I'll give you an example. I have found myself being at home. I am out of work, but I am very busy on my phone responding to the things that are happening. I'm following up things, I'm doing all those things. So I'm there physically. So, but I'm not present. So and that's why I was saying it's not about a matter of you being physically present. It is, are you engaged? Have you switched off, or have you given yourself time to be that space? Now you can now engage with conversations without being in a place of a hurry, and you're listening. And you notice, especially with our kids, they sometimes really engage us when we get out of work, but you're busy thinking, you're busy responding to something, then tells you something, and then you tell him, you say yes, only to realize what you said yes is something different. So when it comes back, I say, but you told me yes. So you're there saying, no. Then the child also tells you, oh, by the way, you are not present. And you feel like the children really get frustrated. And it is not only children. We do the same with our spouses. We do the same with people we work with. There are times when we are working, we need to be present with people, not just productive.
Okay. So essentially what you're saying is that being present is being there in the moment with the people that you have around you, and being productive is being focused on ensuring that you finish your tasks no matter what, right?
Yes. And
Wow.
we have an analogy. We have an analogy that we call 5 gears. It uses the analogy of a car. So you can see from here, you have gear 5, gear 4, gear 3, and gear 1, and of course, reverse gear. So number 1, focus mode is gear number 5. At that moment, you're fully engaged, totally engaged. You're in gear 5, totally engaged. You're engrossed in what you're doing. Then gear 4, you're in a task mode. Task mode, you're multitasking, you're talking with somebody while you're doing something else, you're following up your to-do list. You are busy, for lack of a better word. You're busy. You are there, you're not there, but you're not fully engaged with people while at the same time you're doing a lot of things, especially in work or something like that. Then we have gear number 3 is a social mode. And this social mode is what I would say, it's like when you're working with people, you have gone for lunch, and when you say you're in gear 3, you are in that space that you're not really in deep conversations, but you're engaging with people. Like you have gone for a cocktail. Instead of being on your phone, you are there with the people. You're talking with them. You're getting to know people. There are people that you are getting familiarized with. So you don't have those really deep conversations, but you have put all the distractions away. So you're in a space where you can engage. Gear number 2 is usually a connection mode. Gear number 2 is a place where you after gear number 3, when even if you're growing with people, you start with gear number 3, then you come to gear number 2. Gear number 2, you're totally connecting. So these are mostly your family members who you have a bond. So in that place, you're connecting with them in a deep conversation. Like we'll find, like when you go home, you have a spouse, you keep everything away, and now you're talking. How was your day? This is a person already that you have an in-depth relationship with them. So you disconnect, you kind of disconnect and really have heart-to-heart conversation with your children or your closest friend. So this is not the same as gear 3. Gear 3 is like acquaintances, people at work, but gear number 2 is you're really connecting, no distraction. Gear number 1 is you are in a recharge mode. So it means sometimes most of us, we are so busy in tasks, or that is gear number 4, gear number 5, or alternatively, people around us, that is gear number 3 and gear number 2, but we are not recharging ourselves as individuals. How are we doing our own personal recharge? Some of us do personal recharge by personal journaling, devotions in the morning. Others, when they run, all these things. It's for their own recharging. And then one of the things I also discovered one time as I was taking this with one of my son, he told me for him, actually, gear number 1, the way he recharges is by talking to people. Once he talks to people, he's able now to recharge and sit and do something else. So you are totally, completely unplugged, and you're focusing on yourself, self-development. This is where it happens. Then finally, you have gear number 5. It's about being responsive. And in this, most likely is you apologize where necessary for the things that you've done wrong. So if you look at this shows a manual car. And there is no way a manual car you can say like you can be on gear 5 all day. You cannot say I'm going to be in gear 4 the whole day. You cannot say I'm going to be in gear 3 the whole day. So how you balance this is looking at now this model, asking yourself, how can I then be in what gear at what time? Now you find gear number 5 when you're totally focused, it's usually good for you to plan for it. Plan for it and tell people, I am in gear number 5. And the good thing is that you can show people by a show of hands, I'm in gear number 5. But you cannot concentrate the whole day. You can't go to the office and start from gear number 5 from morning to evening. So you need to create time and say, okay, I'm a morning person. I'll create 1 hour in the morning in gear number 5, and people are aware I'm in gear number 5. Then again, the other thing is you cannot be in gear number 4 the whole time. At gear number 4, you are multitasking. So you're not concentrating on one thing to finish it. You get my point? You're moving from one task to another. So you need to ask yourself, at what point can I be in gear number 4 during the day? Gear number 3 usually is when you're going out for lunch or you're meeting people. Be in that space, you are in gear number 3. It's not about work. Just ask somebody, how are you doing? Or if you are connecting with a new client or what kind of new people you in a setting, in an open setting, just get to know who they are. And when we are in social mode, sometimes some of us who are introverts, our biggest challenge is we feel we have nothing to contribute. And that comes because we are thinking of ourselves. But if we are thinking of the other person, we get interested about them, get something about them. So get interested about them. Now, as far as family is concerned, you need to realize now, you're in a family setting, keep away your phone, and now connect one-to-one. And then finally, recharge, you need to understand, ask yourself, what time would be a good recharge for me? Am I a morning person? Am I an evening person? And what activity am I going to get involved in? Yeah. And then reverse, if you have anybody that you have, you feel you have aggrieved, it's usually good to be a place where you can apologize where necessary. So you notice a good car would be in all gears almost every day and not stick to one gear.
Okay. Thank you very much for that elaborate explanation. So for those people who have never seen a manual car, no, I'm sure there must be those. There used to be those gears, because I remember when we were children, we'd always play with the gears. We'd always play with the gears, like even when you're running and you want to run faster, you'd kind of switch gear and try and see whether you can overtake your friends. So yeah, the analogy of a car is super. And maybe perhaps, I know that there are people who consider themselves to be, what can I say? They have the ability to be multitaskers. They have the ability to do everything at the same time. But from your own experience as a coach, do you think it is possible for you to engage every gear at the same time? Like I'm here, I'm interacting with my family, I'm working on a project, and maybe at the same time there is some music in the background so that I can say I am recharging as I do this. I don't know what you think about that.
Yeah, there's that possibility. People who would say, like, if I am working on something, I could listen to music. The question is this thing distracting you? You notice at gear 4, you're being distracted. Is this thing, even when you assume you're in gear 5, is it actually distracting you? If it is distracting you, it's better off. But if it's something that can run in the background, I'm working with my mind and for example, I'm using a laptop, I'm busy typing, I'm busy concentrating with something else, my ears can still listen. You get my point? It's not affecting what I'm doing. But you cannot say, for example, I am a doctor, and I am, how is it called? I'm talking or working around with a patient. I'm working around with a patient, and there is loud music, for example. So that's you need to check. You need to check that, because when we talk about fifth gear, when you're totally concentrating, you need to be in a space where you are comfortable. It's I would say it's more subjective than objective. But in the real sense, for example, you cannot have like what I would say two things that are totally distracting you. Like you can't have music and at the same time something else on a video, which is totally different while you're working.
So what you're saying is that it's possible that entrepreneurs are their own worst enemies by trying to do everything at once.
Yes. You can't do everything at the same time. And that's why we advocate, have what you will call a time schedule. Have a time schedule for doing things. Like, for example, we advocate if the first thing you will do in the morning, if you can, start by self-recharging. Go to gear number 1. Don't start with emails, WhatsApp. Don't start with those things. What happens, what that does for you is that it distracts you, because the moment you start with WhatsApp messages, so you find yourself, I had an intention of reading, I had an intention of this self-development, but this thing distracts me. I realize the hour is already gone, or I'm on in a TV. I've just switched on a TV. I get something very interesting that has happened, and it takes me like 30 minutes before I come back to recharge. Time is gone. So the thing is, be intentional of scheduling your gears. Be intentional. And there are things we call triggers. Like, for example, a trigger would be, what would trigger you when, for example, you're about to meet with somebody. I'm meeting with Dennis in the next 30 minutes. So I need to give myself at least 10 minutes before he comes to just be in a space of thinking. So what are we going to discuss with Dennis? It's not when Dennis comes, I'm still doing an email. I'm busy doing an email. And I'm telling him, wait, I am busy talking with him and I'm on email. So you get my point. So what that communicates to the other person is that you don't value them. You feel as if you have communicated. You feel like, as an entrepreneur, you're multitasking, you're juggling all things together. But in the real sense, it sends a different message out there. People feel that you're not present. I also have seen some people, like, for example, if you finish a meeting with them and they were going for another meeting, and that is their office, they leave you, they as you're leaving in the office, they open the door and they are the first one to leave rather than allowing you to leave first. You get my point? That also communicates they are more task oriented. It comes out as if you're not really there with this person. Yeah.
It's something I've experienced quite a lot, where you are interacting with somebody, you think you're having a good time, but then all of a sudden they seem to be in a hurry and they tell you they have to jump into another meeting. So it kind of sounds, or rather it feels very like the effort that you made to go and meet the person was not necessarily that important. But I would say that maybe what you're saying is how we manage the gears is all about time, right?
So what, if I hear you correctly, is that you go meet somebody and you are there, and then he tells you he has to rush for another meeting, yet you had agreed this is the time that you're going to meet, and you feel like you are shortchanged.
Yeah.
So what I was saying is that you go and meet somebody, and you feel as if they are very busy going to another meeting. So number one, as an individual, that makes you feel as if to this person, what is important is the task, not the relationship. And that's where the problem comes in. And that's where the gear really helps us. It's because they need to have that margin and realize, I'm going to meet with you for 15 minutes and I have another meeting in the next adjacent or the next. So they need to end a meeting either a minute or two before, so that they can transition. We call those things triggers. As a leader, you need to have triggers for transitioning. And these triggers for transitioning is like the one I used, and I said, like, you are meeting you in the next 5 minutes. So I need to shut down everything and prepare for you. Like if I am out of the office and I'm heading home, I need to be in a place where I tell myself, like, I have to have a trigger or a marker, a trigger or a marker, in such a way that, for example, if I reach a specific place, I know I'm heading home. So I need to just start thinking, how is home going to be? My children, how am I going to connect with my children? How am I going to connect with my spouse? What that does for you is that it helps you to transition from the fourth gear, because you're trying to multitask as you're coming to the office to home. It makes you transition from that to now being in a place. Now you're intentionally connecting and thinking of how you're going to connect with the rest of the people. And that's where the biggest issues come. You know, I reach at home, and because I am still on my phone, answering WhatsApp or messages or emails, I reach at home, and my son comes to me very excited, trying to explain to me what happens in school, what happened in school that day. But I can hear what they are saying, but I'm still in that gear number 4. Instead of telling myself, by the time I reach, for example, if I am on the gate, I need to start thinking, how am I going to connect with my son? So that's what we call either triggers or markers. Triggers would be like, in 5 minutes, I'm going to meet with somebody. So you need to set a trigger. Before those 5 minutes, I need to transition. If I was in gear 5, I need to transition now to be in a space I can be in gear 3, because I'm discussing this something. I'm discussing with somebody something. If I'm going at home or I'm going to another meeting, I need also to be in that space. Like, I know this is a marker. When I reach here, I need to now start thinking of how I'm going to work or start connecting with the people that I'll find there.
No, that's quite interesting. No, that reminds me of, especially for married people, when you go on a date with your wife, or you have some people do it monthly, some people do it more often or less frequently, and you're following up on a deal. So now you're in this nice restaurant, but you have nothing to say. Essentially, there are no conversations are coming. Then the spouse can always knows that you are distracted, and then it's just a bad evening. And if what you're following up on does not go through, it turns out to be even worse. So I think what you're saying is quite it's something that is relevant. I think it happens to everyone. And of course, I've also seen situations where you are on focus mode, and someone is trying to slow you down. I think that sometimes can really make you react badly, I would say. So I don't know. So what would you say? Okay, what would you say, like, when it comes to setting these triggers or setting these buffers between moments or tasks that require you to be in different gears? Like, are there like any recommended amounts of time? Or if, say, for example, I was on focus mode and then I need to go and spend time with my child, like how much time is going to be required to move down those gears? And essentially, how do you go about planning for those triggers or those transition phases to move from one, let me call it, gear to another? Yeah.
I think the first thing is be a good communicator. Be a very good communicator of where you are. Like, for example, I'll give you with the whole thing about working at home. When I realized this, I would tell my sons, I have 2 sons, I would tell them, I'm going to gear 5. And gear 5, in the next 1.5 hours, 90 minutes, I will sit down and concentrate. After that, I will come out and speak to you. And you can also create, even in the office, you can also create, you see, like the way we do door markers and put gear number 5. It's just simple. Just explain to people. When I say this, I'm in gear number 5, just put a marker. I'm in gear number 5. The gear number 5, it's essentially not good for you to be in that space for more than 2 hours. Not because of even the people that you're relating with, but also it has been proven scientifically, you cannot concentrate continuously Once you have 90 minutes, take a rest, walk, come, take a pause, do all these things. But sometimes, of course, with some personality, they find that, oh, I need to finish. But have you ever noticed sometimes you're thinking to finish something and you're thinking it's quite some time, it's going to take you 1 hour. But in the real sense, that thing may take you 3 hours. We have a tendency of underestimating the time of how things are going to take. So because of that tendency, it is usually good to be in a space, you just look at time and realize it's about 1 hour, 30 minutes. Can you put a pause? Are you in a place where you can put a pause, then come and pick up? The problem is, if you are distracted, what happens? You lose the momentum. Because you are not, for example, informed the people. You are not informed that I am in gear number 5 at this point, and I'm not in gear number 5. And then for you, on the other hand, as you realize time is coming to, for example, 1 hour, 30 minutes mark, you start asking yourself, where can I pause? What that does into your mind, it makes you to pause, and then you can come and pick up rather than being distracted. And one of the things I have discovered also is, like when you're dealing with children, or what happens is, if you tell them for 1.5 hours you're concentrating, of course they may disturb you here and there, but if you stick to what you're doing for 1.5 hours, then come out even for 5 minutes, engage them, ask them what were you asking, all those things. That gives them a space where they feel valued and they can now continue doing what they are doing. I don't know whether you have ever discovered sometimes your son or your daughter may tell you, Daddy, I want you to be home today. And then when you are home, your son or your daughter goes out to play. So you're wondering, why did this son of mine or the daughter of mine ask me to be at home? But you will notice one thing. You will always notice one thing. They will play. After some time, they will come back and open the door. Daddy, you're still there. Oh, good. Then go out. Mm. So you get my point. It is that feeling of security that they need. So if you have these moments, even 5 minutes of total, what I would call total being present with them, it gives them an energy to continue doing something else because they feel you're present. But if you are so much busy, you are in your cocoon the whole day, you want to start from 8 to noon, they really disturb you because they will feel, but if you every after 1 hour or 1.5 hours, you get out, connect with them. So what are you doing? So what are you watching? What are you playing? That helps them to realize they feel that security you are around. Same thing with your spouse. Like the way you are saying about a date, it's a very common thing with men that sometimes we go to dates and what happens is we are following up something. It is always good to be vulnerable and say, there's something I'm following up. Can you give me this time? And then the other thing would be, put your phone away and then even give yourself even an interval for now. Sometimes some things, we feel so much pressured, we feel so much anxious of being, how would I call it, to expedite things. But even a delay of 1 hour would make a whole difference. That's where self-control comes in. But if you're busy on your WhatsApp, you're here, you're not concentrating with what you're doing. You're not concentrating, but you can say, okay, for the next 1 hour, even the person you're dealing with, tell them, and then I will respond in hourly format. I'll respond in an hour. The other person will understand because it's not a do or die, unless it's something that is there is something burning. Emergency is a different thing for a doctor. For a doctor, that's a different thing. But most of us, some of the things that we consider to be emergencies are not really emergencies. So be in that space that you're also able to manage the other person and maybe hear your spouse. You tell your spouse, okay, in the next 1 hour, I'll check my WhatsApp, I'll check my email because there's something I'm expecting. Take that 1 hour. What that does for you, it gives you discipline. It gives you discipline. It makes you be in a space that people feel you're present and you're not just distracted. I have had somebody who does something different. He keeps the phone away, for example, in the evening, but he has given people, he has different tunes, or what do we call them? So he knows if this is a ringer, this means it's somebody from work. Currently, I can ignore that. If this is the alarm, the ringer, is this, it's a family member, so that one I can pick. You get my point? So also have those things that can help you balance the whole thing.
Oh, wow. I think it looks like this subject of work-life balance is something that you have to be very intentional when it comes to planning, when it comes to planning for it, right? Like having different ringtones for different people. Say, like, for example, if it's something that needs to be an emergency, then you can be able to differentiate, as opposed to having the same ringtone and assuming that every call is a very important call, or looking down on certain calls. Then I think something else that is quite interesting is that planning your communication so that you can be engaged in what you're doing at that period in time. And I think also accepting that we can never have more time, right?
Sure.
Also accepting that we can never really have more time. Then maybe something else that you can comment on is, now, for people who are getting started in their businesses, or people who are going through, because there are normally certain very stressful phases of doing business. One is when you're getting started. Another one is when you're trying to grow your business rapidly, like that may demand more time from you. Then how does work-life balance look like in those kind of situations? And how would you advise people who are going through, let me say, the time that their business or their work really requires a lot of their time?
I think the biggest thing is, I will call it a mindset. I am professionally an accountant, and I can tell you there were times that we would work very late. But there's something I noticed. If I worked past 8 p.m. and I've been in the office since morning, my productivity was very low. So it means something that I could just shut down at 7, go home, rest, do something else completely, then come early in the morning and start on, would take lesser time. I'll give you an example. I will notice, for example, I would work on 1 hour in the morning when I'm totally fresh. I would do a lot of work as compared 1 hour between, say, 7 to 8 p.m. So I would work like even to a lesser than 50% of what I can work in the morning. So you see, it's a mindset thing. And this thing about urgency is actually a mindset thing. So sometimes we get so much thinking that we have to be there, we have to add, we have to keep on, we have to do all these things. But even rest in itself is totally an important thing. So we ignore, and most likely those people who are alcoholic, they ignore gear number 1. Somewhere they just sit down and self-recharge. They ask, even that's reflection. How was your day? What can I do different? But sometimes when you get to gear number 5 or gear number 4, you just focused on what you want to do. But there is also a place that you can sit down and ask yourself, okay, now it's in, can I shut down? It's already, let's say, 7 p.m. Can I shut down and just go relax? And then the first thing I wake up in the morning, rather than waking up and starting work, I take even 15 minutes to just think of reflecting of how I've worked yesterday, and is there anything else I can change today, rather than just going to gear 4 or gear 5 straight. That really changes things. The other thing is, you need to look at your gears and analyze them this way. Analyze them where you prefer them, your preferences. You can see, like, there are some people, like, you find somebody who in their mind prefers, their preference sequence is maybe gear number 2, number 3, number 4, and then 5 being the last. You see, that's their preference. They are thinking, I need to prioritize the family. I need to prioritize friends. I need to prioritize being self-recharge. That is what they are thinking. Then compare that with what you're actually doing. So you will find somebody who would say, my preference is to be, my first preference should be gear number 2, to put my family or the people who really matter in my life as number 1. But what are you actually doing? Are you in a space that the people who you are planning to have gear number 2 actually feel like you are always in gear 4 and gear 5? So they feel no time. So that will also give you a space to start analyzing your life. Because I totally agree that temporarily, and I mean temporarily, what I mean about temporality is that you cannot be in gear number 4, gear number 5 for extended periods of more than 3 months without asking yourself, what is it that you can do different? If you do that, you will have burnout. And then at the same time, because you have deprived the people who really care about you, you realize you are burned out, but the people who should support you also feel that you're not there for them. So you find as if they have withdrawn. So that balance, you also have to be in that balance. Ask yourself, where am I at? And it is a good thing to always evaluate yourself, if possible on a daily basis, but at least on a weekly basis.
Well, I think, what you said is very powerful, because I would say that gears are supposed to help vehicles move long distances.
Yes.
And of course, if you always stay on top gear, you'll not be able to go very far. If you always stay on the resting gear, also you will not be able to go. You also not be able to go very far. So maybe something that we ought to think about, of course, the people who are listening to us and even us ourselves, is like, the way we are running our gears, is it really going to help us cover the distance? Because we do have like aspirations, we have goals, we have dreams that we want to achieve, but if we ruin the gearbox, we will we will get ourselves stuck if we don't, if we are not very conscious about that aspect of gears. Also, something else that's quite interesting about this conversation is like how we operate in a way that is different from what our ideals are. And maybe even the previous conversation that we had about self-awareness is very important for us, especially as business leaders. And as we head to the, I'm sure that we'll have another conversation about this, about maybe avoiding burnout and how, and maybe delving deeper into this conversation about work-life balance and how to be productive and to be present at the same time. What would you say is your, let me say, word of encouragement or insight for people who are struggling with this aspect, and maybe where would you advise that they get started?
I think the first thing is to start from a place of looking at what is your preferred gears sequence or levels. Just look at what you prefer and what is your present. That will open up a Pandora box, and also be in a space that you can share, for example, with the people who are close to you. I noticed there was a time I shared with one of my son, and he's 9 years, and I explained to him gear 4, and he told me, by the way, one of the things I have discovered one of the things I discovered is when you're in gear 4, you tell me, wait, I will let you know. What that does to me, it makes me be in a space where I feel you will not want to listen to me. And at that moment, I most likely forget what I wanted to tell you. So because he knows, like when I'm in gear 5, he knows I'm in gear 5. But when I'm in gear 4, I'm multitasking. I'm in a way that I can tell him, okay, let me pause, let me listen to you, because you're multitasking at that moment. But in gear 5, like for example, if I'm having a session, I'm having a coaching session, he knows he can't interrupt, that I'm already in gear 5. So I realized how that really affects him. So and this comes from conversation. Have conversations with the people around you about your gears. Let them tell you, there is what you think about yourself. That's the second thing. Having looked at your preferences and your what you think is it's actually happening, then go to the relationships around you and ask them to rate you, where they feel you, which gears are you, or which gear are you most likely to be in. And then you also need to be in that place. We know entrepreneurs, we assume entrepreneurs are people who are always productive, so they kind to be more workaholics. So that's productivity. But also, you also have to realize there are some people who are so present, sometimes they forget what they're supposed to do. Even for those ones, they need to challenge themselves and ask themselves, yes, I'm so present. And the most thing about people who are present is like, you notice something. There's something we call discipline and discretion. Those people who are not really present, who are totally present, they find themselves, for lack of a better word, talking too much without realizing there is discretion of what to share, and there's a discipline where you need to share it. So that's the other thing. So I know we have talked about people who are in gear 5 and gear 4, but also the people who like gear 3 so much, or gear 2, are also in that space where they can find themselves in a space where they are so much focused with the relationship, so they are actually present, but they are overly present. They should concentrate on something else.
Okay. Actually, I like what you said about the gear sequence. Say, like your preferred, or what you'd like your gear sequence to be is like, how much time would you like to dedicate to being present there for your family and your friends? How much time would you like to be present in terms of relating with your acquaintances and maybe your colleagues? How much time you'd like to link, or rather to associate with, or to spend doing your rest, and maybe doing some multitasking and doing some higher level tasks, or rather the focus work. That is what gear sequencing means.
Yes. It's
and
like
of course,
you're going from gear 2 like that. It's like a manual car. You go from one gear like that. You have to navigate the gears.
Yeah, and of course, what you've said, which is quite interesting also, is for people who are, I know for people who are productive, they really struggle to be present. But for guys who are too present, I think they know that they are maybe them they need even more help. But even for them, they need also to see how to become very productive and very focused. I would say that we will continue with this. We'll continue with this conversation. I know we have covered quite a lot, but thank you very much for taking the time to break down to us what the gears are. Yeah, also to help us know that by interacting with the people who are closest to us, they can let us know which gears we tend to spend majority of our time on. By gears means whether we are too focused, whether we are always multitasking things, and how that could also be hurting our relationships with them. And also helping us to see that we can actually create a preferred sequence of gears and stick to it, so that we can become productive and manage work and life much, much better. Thank you very much, Joel, again for joining us today.